The shotgun blast tore through the pre-dawn hush like a scream in a confessional, splintering the old oak railing on the farmhouse porch and sending shards of wood exploding into the dew-kissed air. I jolted upright in the wicker chair where I dozed off, my coffee mug shattering against the warped floorboards, heart slamming against my ribs as if it meant to escape the cage of my chest. Alex stood there in the half-light, the double barrel still smoking in his grip. His face a mask of feral regret, eyes locked on mine, whispering, "Carter, I couldn't let it end like this. Not without you knowing." That was the moment everything cracked open, raw and irreversible, like the first fissure in a dam holding back a flood of secrets we'd both pretended weren't there. We'd driven out here to the crumbling farmhouse in upstate New York 2 days ago, fleeing the concrete grind of Brooklyn like two kids playing hooky from our own lives. Alex had inherited the place from his grandfather last fall, a sagging Victorian relic on 50 acres of overgrown fields and whispering pines, the kind of spot that smelled like damp earth and forgotten promises. "Come on, man," he'd said over greasy diner eggs that morning in the city, clapping my shoulder with that easy grin that always made my stomach twist in ways I chalked up to indigestion. "We need this. You, especially. That job's sucking the soul right out of you." He wasn't wrong. At 27, I was a graphic designer scraping by on freelance gigs, holed up in a walk-up in Williamsburg that reeked of takeout and regret. My days blurred into nights scrolling through Grindr profiles I never swiped on, telling myself I was just figuring things out. Alex, my best friend since freshman year at NYU, was the anchor in that storm, tall, broad-shouldered, with sun-bleached hair and a laugh that could disarm a room. We'd bonded over bad poetry slams and worse hangovers, him the golden boy from a fractured upstate family, me the kid from Ohio who'd traded cornfields for subways to chase a dream that felt more like a ghost. He was straight, or so I believed, with a string of girlfriends who'd come and gone like seasons. But lately, there'd been this undercurrent, glances lingering a beat too long, his hand brushing mine when he passed the beer. The drive up had been a blur of autumn gold, Interstate 87 winding north through the Hudson Valley, leaves carpeting the shoulders like spilled confetti. We'd blasted Springsteen, windows down, the crisp air whipping our faces as Alex drummed the wheel to Thunder Road. "This place is gonna fix us, Carter," he'd said, voice thick with something I couldn't place. "No screens, no bullshit. Just you, me, and whatever ghosts Grandpa left behind." By the time we pulled into the gravel drive at dusk, the farmhouse loomed like a sentinel, peeling white-clabbered, a widow's walk creaking in the wind, silos tilting like drunk uncles in the distance. Inside, it was a time capsule, faded quilts on the beds, a wood stove that belched smoke like an old man's cough, and shelves of yellowed National Geographics that smelled of mildew and memory. That first night, we cracked open a bottle of bourbon from Alex's trunk. Cheap stuff, but it burned sweet going down, and sprawled on the threadbare rug in the living room, fire crackling as shadows danced on the walls. We talked like we always did, easy rhythms masking the fractures. He vented about his latest breakup with Sarah, the barista who'd ghosted him after 6 months. She said I was too intense, he muttered, staring into the flames. "Like that's a bad thing." I nodded, nursing my glass, wondering if he saw how my fingers trembled when our knees bumped. "You're a lot, Alex," I teased, voice lighter than I felt. "But the good kind." He turned then, eyes catching the firelight, and for a heartbeat, the air thickened. His hand landed on my thigh, casual, or so it seemed, squeezing once before pulling away. You're the only one who gets it, Carter. Always have. I chalked it up to the booze, the isolation, the way the farmhouse seemed to amplify every unspoken thing. Sleep came fitful in the guest room upstairs, the bed creaking under me like it was alive, dreams tangled with fragments of his face. Morning brought coffee on the porch, mist rolling off the fields like breath from a sleeping giant. We hiked the property that day, boots crunching through brittle grass, Alex pointing out the rusted tractor his grandpa had restored, the creek where he'd fished as a kid. This was his escape, he said, skipping a stone across the water. From Mom's breakdowns, Dad's rages. He'd bring me here summers, teach me how to fix engines, how to listen to the land. There was a reverence in his voice, a vulnerability that made my chest ache. I wanted to ask about the scars, the faded one on his forearm from a bar fight, the deeper ones he never named, but instead, I just walked beside him, letting the silence weave us closer. By afternoon, we'd unearthed a stash of his grandfather's old records in the attic, Johnny Cash, Patsy Cline, and spun them on a dusty turntable while rain pattered the tin roof. We cooked chili from cans, laughing over spilled beans, the kitchen filling with steam and the sharp tang of spices. Felt like freedom, this bubble we'd carved out, far from the city's judgmental hum. But as night fell again, the bourbon flowed freer, and the talk turned sharper. You ever think about settling down? Alex asked, slouched against the counter, glass dangling from his fingers. Like, for real, not just swiping left on apps. My laugh came out brittle. He knew about the apps, had walked in on me once, screen glowing with half-naked torsos. Yeah, well, I said, stirring the pot too hard. Kinda hard when you're still pretending half the time. He went still, watching me with that intensity again. Pretending what? The question hung there, heavy as the storm clouds banking outside. I shrugged it off, changed the subject to the Mets' playoff chances, but the seed was planted. Later, as we climbed the stairs to bed, his hand grazed my back, lingering, warm through my shirt. In my room, I lay awake, pulse racing, the floorboards groaning like they were echoing my thoughts. What if the farmhouse had a way of stripping you bare, forcing truths to the surface like weeds after rain? The next day dawned gray and restless, wind rattling the shutters like impatient fingers. We decided to fix the old rowboat by the creek, a project Alex swore would bond us like brothers. Tools scattered on the bank. We worked side by side, sleeves rolled up, mud caking our jeans. Sweat beaded on his neck, trickling down to the collar of his flannel, and I caught myself staring, heat rising unrelated to the sun. Pass the wrench, he said, oblivious or not, and when our fingers brushed, electricity sparked, real, undeniable. He paused, wrench forgotten, and met my gaze. Carter. You feel that too, right? This pull. My throat closed up. Alex, don't. But he did, stepping closer, the boat forgotten, his hand cupping my jaw with a gentleness that shattered me. I've been fighting it since college, he confessed, voice rough as gravel. Telling myself it was nothing, that you're my best friend, that it can't. But God, Carter, every time you're near, it's like I'm drowning and you're the only air. His lips crashed into mine then, fierce, desperate, tasting of salt and unspoken years. Kissed back, hands fisting in his shirt, the world narrowing to the press of his body, the creak murmuring approval. It was everything I'd imagined in fevered nights, his touch igniting fires I'd banked low. We stumbled back to the farmhouse in a haze, clothes shedding like inhibitions, tumbling onto the rug by the cold hearth. His hands mapped me like sacred ground, fingers tracing ribs, thumbs circling nipples until I arched, gasping his name. "I've wanted this," he murmured against my skin, lips trailing fire down my chest. "Wanted you." I lost myself in him, in the rhythm of our bodies sinking like a long-forgotten song, thrusts deep and claiming, moans echoing off the walls. Climax hit like a thunderclap, leaving us tangled, slick and spent, his head on my chest as rain lashed the windows. But dawn brought the recoil. I woke to him pacing the kitchen, shotgun in hand, not loaded, thank God, but propped against the counter like a threat. "Last night," he started, voice hollow. "It wasn't just the booze, Carter. But my family's coming today. Dad, my uncle, they think I'm bringing Sarah. If they find out," his eyes pleaded, torn between us and the ghosts he'd run from. I reached for him, but he flinched. "I love you," he whispered, the words a blade. "But this place, this life, it's poisoned." That's when the blast came, not real, but him firing into the railing outside, a symbolic shatter. "I can't hide anymore," he said, barrel warm in his grip. "But I can't lose them either." Betrayal stung sharp. Had it all been a lie? This night of revelations? Or was he just as trapped as me? As tires crunched on the drive, headlights piercing the fog, I realized the real shock wasn't the kiss. It was realizing love could demand everything and give nothing back. The crunch of gravel under tires pulled me from the porch like a riptide, my bare feet slapping cold boards as I bolted inside, pulse thundering in my ears. Alex slammed the shotgun into the gun cabinet, locking it with hands that shook, his face ashen under the kitchen fluorescence. "Act normal," he hissed, tossing me a hoodie from the hook. "They're early. Dad's always like this. Testing." I yanked it on, heart still raw from the night's confessions, the taste of him lingering like a bruise. Normal? After he'd unraveled me thread by thread, only to stitch panic in its place? The screen door banged open before I could form words, and in barreled Frank Harlan, Alex's father, a bear of a man in Carhartt overalls and a John Deere cap, his mustache bristling like wire. Behind him trailed Uncle Ray, slimmer, sharper-eyed, carrying a cooler of what smelled like venison jerky and Bud Light. "Well, hell, boy," Frank boomed, clapping Alex on the back hard enough to stagger him. "Place looks like shit, but it's home. Where's this Sarah gal? We brought fixings for a proper welcome." Alex's smile was a brittle thing, cracking at the edges. "She's running late, Dad. This is Carter, my buddy from the city. We were just, fixing up the boat." Frank's gaze swung to me, praising, like I was a heifer at auction. "City boy, huh? You look like you ain't seen dirt since the last rain." He thrust out a calloused hand, grip crushing mine. "Frank, this here's Ray." We drove up from Syracuse to check on the inheritance. "Make sure you ain't let the weeds win." Ray nodded, quieter, but his eyes lingered, probing, as if he sensed the electricity still crackling in the air. We shook, the cooler thumping down on the counter like an accusation. Breakfast was a farce, eggs scrambled with jerky bits, coffee black as tar, served on the scarred oak table that had seen generations of Harlan men. Alex sat rigid, forking food he didn't eat, while Frank held court with tales of mill jobs lost to China and the glory days of union strikes. "Your grandpa built this farm with blood, Alex," he growled, jabbing a finger. "Fought in Nam, came back with half a lung, and still plowed these fields till his hands bled. Don't you squander it on some city fluff." I nodded along, throat tight, stealing glances at Alex, his jaw clenched, knuckles white on his mug. Ray watched too, silent, but when he caught me looking, he winked, a flicker of something knowing that made my skin crawl. After plates cleared, the menfolk dragged us out to the barn, tools in hand, to tackle that south fence before the cows ghost us. Alex and I hauled posts through the muck, hammers swinging in sync, while Frank barked orders and Ray measured wire with a squint. Sweat soaked my shirt, the hoodie discarded, and every brush of Alex's arm against mine was torture. Reminder of midnight skin, now forbidden under the open sky. "You okay?" he murmured once, low under the wind's howl. I shot him a glare. "Am I? You drop 'I love you' like it's dynamite, then play house with ghosts." He winced, driving a nail home with vicious force. "It's not that simple, Carter. That." He disowned my cousin for being queer. "Beat him bloody." "I can't." "Can't what?" "Be who you are." The words slipped out, sharper than intended, and Frank's head snapped up from across the field. "What's that, boy?" he called, lumbering over. Alex covered quick. "Just saying the wire's queer, twisted wrong." Frank grunted, satisfied, but Ray's eyes narrowed, filing it away. The afternoon dragged, barbed wire biting my palms like judgment, until storm clouds boiled up from the west, forcing us inside as thunder grumbled threats. Dinner was stew from the crockpot, venison and potatoes, thick with onions and more stories, Frank's voice rising with each beer. "Alex here's always been soft," he said, not unkindly, ruffling his son's hair. "Remember that time you cried over the runt piglet? Thought you were gonna nurse it in your bed." Laughter rippled, but Alex flushed crimson, shooting me an apology in his eyes. Ray leaned in then, voice oily smooth. "Speaking of soft, Frank, you hear about Harlan Kin down in Albany? Cousin Tom's boy, caught with another fella at the county fair. Whole family's shunned now. Blood don't mean shit when it's tainted." The table stilled, forks hovering. Frank's face darkened. "Disgrace. Bible's clear, man with man. Abomination. We'd never have that here." I choked on my stew, coughing to cover the bile rising. Alex's foot nudged mine under the table, steadying, or warning, but it burned like accusation. As rain sheeted the windows, the old men settled by the fire with cards, slapping down hands and swigging whiskey. Alex pulled me aside to the mudroom, door ajar to the storm. "I'm sorry," he breathed, hands framing my face, thumbs brushing tears I hadn't realized were falling. "This is my hell, Carter. Dad raised me on fire and brimstone, but you're the light I can't snuff out." He kissed me then, brief and fierce, tasting of fear and need. "Stay tonight." "Please." I did, slipping upstairs after the snores started, the house creaking like it held its breath. In his room, Grandpa's old master, With its iron bed and quilted ghosts, we came together again. Quieter this time, bodies whispering secrets the walls might betray. His touch was reverent, mapping freckles like constellations, lips mouthing mine against my hip as he took me slow, deep, unraveling me with every thrust until stars burst behind my eyes. We clung after, breath sinking, his fingers tracing lazy circles on my back. "I want to tell them," he murmured into my hair. "Tomorrow. For us." But dawn brought betrayal's blade, cold and unexpected. I woke to voices downstairs, low, urgent, and crept to the landing, peering through the balusters. Ray stood in the kitchen, Alex cornered against the sink, faces inches apart. "Saw you two last night, boy," Ray hissed, grip iron on Alex's arm. "Mudroom ain't as private as you think. You pull this queer shit here, under your daddy's nose? I'll tell him myself, unless you wise up." Alex's voice cracked. "Uncle, please, it's not what you—" Ray's laugh was venom. "Not what? I know hunger when I see it. Felt it once myself, buried it deep. You bury it too, or lose everything. That city boy's poison. Send him packing." My blood iced. Alex, silent, head bowed. When Ray sauntered out for coffee, Alex met my eyes from the stairs, horror, then resolve hardening to steel. "Carter," he started, but I was already moving, grabbing my duffel from the hall, boots in hand. "Don't," I whispered, voice shattering. "Just don't." The screen door slapped behind me, rain soaking me to bone as I trudged the drive, thunder masking my sobs. His truck roared to life minutes later, headlights catching me in the downpour. "Get in," he yelled over the engine. "We talk. Now." We drove in silence, wipers slashing fury, until he veered off-road onto a logging trail, tires churning mud. "Ray's lying," he exploded, killing the ignition. "I swear, I didn't," but I cut him off, fury boiling over. "Didn't what? Choose them over me?" Again, he reached, but I jerked away. "Every time it gets real, you fold, Alex. Last night, this morning, you say you love me, then let him threaten it away." Tears streamed, mixing with rain. "I'm done being your secret," he deflated, hands falling limp. "I hate this part of me, the scared kid Dad beat into shape. But you're worth fighting for." Then, shocking me anew, he pulled a ring from his pocket. Not diamond, but a simple silver band, etched with coordinates of this very spot. "Grandpa's." He gave it to Grandma before proposing. "I want it on your finger, Carter. When I'm brave enough." The proposal hung, fragile as the storm's lull. But Ray's words echoed tainted blood. As lightning cracked, illuminating his pleading face, I wondered if love could outrun legacy, or if we'd both drown trying. The ring glinted in his palm like a dare, silver catching the lightning's jagged flash, and for a suspended breath, the cab of the truck felt like the eye of the hurricane. Calm, charged, inevitable. Alex's eyes, storm gray and pleading, held mine, rain drumming the roof in relentless Morse code. "Say something," he urged, voice frayed at the edges. "Tell me we're not cursed." I stared at the band, thumb tracing the etched numbers, 42. Something north, 74. West, the precise latitude of heartbreak. It's beautiful, I admitted, throat tight. But rings don't fix rot. Alex, your uncle saw us, knows. And you let him twist it into poison. He flinched, as if slapped, shoving the ring back into his pocket like it burned. Ray's full of shit. He crawled out of the same closet once, booze and denial, that's his gospel. But me, I'm done hiding. The words rang true, or wanted to, but doubt coiled in my gut like barbed wire from the fence line. We'd patched so many things this weekend. The boat, the lies, but could we mend this? The engine roared back to life, and he gunned it toward the highway, knuckles white on the wheel. We'll face Dad together, he declared, jaw set. Tell him everything. Then we go New York, anywhere. Start clean. The drive back blurred into gray streaks of highway and pine, radio humming low with Lucinda Williams crooning about car wheels on a gravel road. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Missed texts from freelance clients, a voicemail from my sister back in Ohio asking if I was still moping over that boy. I deleted it all, world narrowing to the man beside me, his free hand inching toward mine on the bench seat. When our fingers laced, tentative, felt like absolution or the last lie before the fall. By the time we crested the hill to the farmhouse, the storm had ebbed to a drizzle, sky bruised purple, the old Victorian emerging like a judge in session. Frank and Ray were on the porch, rocking chairs creaking, shot glasses glinting with amber. Frank's brow furrowed as we pulled up, mudcake truck announcing our chaos. Where the hell you two been? Fence ain't gonna fix itself. Alex killed the engine, squeezing my hand once, hard, promising before stepping out. Dad, Uncle Ray, we gotta talk. The air thickened, rain-slick steps echoing our approach. Ray's eyes flicked to our joined hands, then away, a smirk ghosting his lips like smoke. Inside, the kitchen table became tribunal, stew bowls pushed aside for the weight of truth. Alex paced, words tumbling like floodwater. I'm gay, Dad. Have been since forever. And Carter. He's not just a friend. I love him. The room imploded in silence, Frank's face cycling through confusion to thunder. Ray leaned back, arms crossed, feigning shock. Told you, Frank, city influences. But Alex whirled on him. Shut it, Ray. I know your game, your buried sins. Hypocrite. Frank surged to his feet, chair toppling. What the blue blazes? My boy, my blood with a man? Bible says. Alex cut him off. Voice steel. Bible says love your neighbor, Dad. Not hate your son. I stood frozen, hand in Alex's, as Frank's fist clenched, veins bulging like rivers in flood. The explosion came swift, Frank's palm cracking across Alex's cheek, a sound like wet timber snapping. Liar, ungrateful whelp. After all your grandpa gave you. Alex reeled, blood welling from split lip, but held ground, ice fierce. Grandpa knew love beyond labels. He wrote me letters about choices, regrets. He would have wanted this. Ray interjected, oily calm. Letters? Boy's delirious. Frank, let's get him to church. Pray this devil out. But Frank wavered, hand trembling, gaze shifting to me, accusatory, then softening to something human, broken. You poisoned him? I shook my head, voice steady despite the quake inside. No, sir. Love doesn't poison. Hiding does. Chaos reigned then. Frank storming out to the barn, muttering scriptures like curses, Ray trailing with venomous whispers. Alex collapsed against the counter, face crumpling. "I did it," he gasped, pulling me close. "For us." I held him, tasting copper on his lip as I kissed the hurt, but victory felt hollow, the farmhouse echoing with fractures. We cleaned up in silence, ice on his jaw, stitches from the first aid kit for the gash. Night fell heavy, wind moaning through eaves, and we retreated to his room, bodies seeking solace in the dark. Sex was different now, urgent, affirming, his hands claiming me with a desperation that bordered tears. "You're my home," he whispered, moving inside me slow and deep, each roll of hips a vow. I came undone beneath him, nails raking his back, our release a shared sob into the pillow. Morning cracked open with uneasy truce. Frank waited in the kitchen, eyes red-rimmed, coffee steaming untouched. "Sat up all night with the good book," he grunted, not meeting our gaze. "And them letters, your grandpa's. Read 'em after you crashed." He struggled too. "Boy." Never said, but ink don't lie. Alex froze in the doorway, my hand in his. "Dad." Frank cleared his throat. Gruff. "Ain't saying it's easy. Or right. But you're Harlan blood. We endure." Ray slunk in then, face sour as curdled milk. "This weakness'll ruin us, Frank. Tell the kin, or I will." The threat hung, but Frank's eyes hardened. Not at us, but him. "You threatening family, Ray? After your own skeletons." Ray blanched, stammering. "I, out," Frank barked, pointing to the door. "Take your cooler and your judgment. This farm's for healing, not hate." Ray sputtered, grabbing his keys, but as he brushed past me in the hall, he leaned close, breath hot, voice a serpent's hiss. "This ain't over, pretty boy. Harlans don't bend. They break." The door slammed, engine fading into the mist, leaving a vacuum we didn't know how to fill. The days blurred after, a fragile peace, Frank's grunts softening to questions over breakfast, tentative overtures like passing the salt without a glare. Alex and I worked the land together, mending fences literal and not. His ring slipping onto my finger one golden afternoon by the creek, coordinates aligning with our own. "Marry me?" he asked, knee in the mud, grin boyish despite the bruise fading on his cheek. "Hell yes," I laughed, pulling him up, sealing it with a kiss that tasted of forever. But Ray's shadow lingered, a specter in the periphery. Whispers reached us via town gossip, Ray stirring pots at the diner, painting Alex as the prodigal sinner, kin fracturing like dry earth. One night, as fireflies danced outside, Frank gathered us on the porch. "Heard from your aunt," he said, pipe smoke curling. "Ray's badmouthing. Says you'll sell the farm to city deviants." Alex tensed beside me. "Let him. We're staying." Frank nodded slow. "Damn right. But blood's blood. We face him together." The confrontation brewed like a squall, culminating a week later when Ray roared up unannounced, truck bed loaded with concerned relatives, cousins, aunts, a grim-faced preacher clutching his Bible. They spilled out like an invasion, faces twisted in pious fury, Ray at the helm. Time to cleanse this house. Alex, he bellowed, waving sheaves of what looked like legal papers. Petition to contest the will, say you're unfit, tainting the legacy. Frank stepped forward, shotgun, not loaded, propped casual on his shoulder. This Harlan land, right? You got no claim. The crowd murmured, as darting to me, the outsider interloper. Alex pushed through, hand firm in mine. Enough. I'm gay. Yeah. In love. Yeah. And this farm is mine, ours to build, not burn. The preacher droned verses, but Alex's voice rose, cracking with passion. Grandpa taught endurance, not erasure. You want to shun me? Go. But you're missing the fight worth having. A hush fell, relatives shifting uneasy, seeds of doubt sown. Ray lunged then, wild, unhinged, snatching for the papers, but tripped on the porch step, sprawling in the dirt. Laughter rippled, nervous at first, then freeing. An aunt knelt, helping him up, murmuring, "Let it go, brother." Time heals crooked. As the crowd dispersed, tails tucked, Ray glared from his truck, defeated venom in his eyes. "You'll regret this," he spat, but the words fell flat, wind carrying them away. Frank clapped Alex's shoulder, gentle, paternal. "Proud of you, son." That night, under stars pricked like promises, Alex and I made love on the widow's walk, bodies entwined with the farmhouse's heartbeat below. Climax washed over us like grace, his name a prayer on my lips. Yet peace, in America's heartland, is a jealous lover, fleeting, hard-won. Weeks later, a letter arrived, Ray's lawsuit, filed in county court, dredging ghosts we'd buried. The fight wasn't over, it was just beginning. But with Alex's ring heavy on my finger, Frank's nod at breakfast, and the land stretching forgiving under our feet, I believed we could weather it. Love, after all, isn't the shock, it's the steady burn that follows. The courtroom in Watertown smelled of polished oak and stale coffee, fluorescent hum underscoring the murmur of spectators like a bad omen. I sat ramrod straight in the gallery, Alex's hand slick with sweat in mine, his thigh pressed to my knee in silent solidarity. It had been 2 months since Ray's ambush, the farmhouse a fragile Eden we tended with calloused hands and whispered vows. Fall had deepened to winter's bite, fields blanketed in snow, the creak a frozen vein, but the cold outside paled to the frost Ray aimed to unleash. Frank flanked our other side, his bulk a bulwark, mustache twitching with restrained thunder. Harlan strong, he'd mutter each morning, passing flapjacks, a mantra against the siege. The judge, a wiry woman named Hargrove with silver-streaked hair and eyes like agates, called order with a gavel crack that echoed my fracturing nerves. Ray's lawyer, a slick Albany suit named Hargrove's opposite, all pinstripes and practiced sneers, rose first, waving affidavits like flags of conquest. Your Honor, the petitioner contests the will on grounds of undue influence and moral unfitness. Alexander Harlan's lifestyle, he paused, letting the word drip disdain, jeopardizes the family legacy. Evidence includes witness statements of deviant behavior on the property. Gasps rippled from the back, where Ray's allies clustered, cousins with Bibles, aunts with pinched lips. My stomach nodded, deviant. The word landed like a slur, dredging every grinder regret, every furtive glance in Brooklyn bars. Alex squeezed my hand. Anchor, Lifeline as his counsel, a no-nonsense queer rights firebrand named Elena from Syracuse, countered sharp. Objection, prejudice masquerading as law. The will is ironclad. Harlan Sr. was of sound mind, and his grandson's orientation is irrelevant. She produced the letters then, yellowed envelopes, Grandpa's spidery script spilling regrets over a love lost to convention. A brother in arms from the war whose touch haunted him unspoken. The deceased valued authenticity over appearances. Elena read, voice steady. He'd want his legacy in hands that honor truth. Frank shifted, pride warring with pain in his eyes. This was his father's ghost, laid bare for strangers. Ray took the stand next. Oath be damned. His testimony a venomous psalm. Saw him myself, kissing like animals on the porch. Alex corrupted by that city boy, Carter Ellis. Tainting the bloodline, selling out to. Whatever this is. He gestured vaguely at us, face florid, the suit dabbing his brow. Whispers swelled, judgmental, but cracked. A few heads shook, uncomfortable. Elena cross-examined ruthless. And your own buried history, Mr. Harlan, the letters from your youth, confessing similar temptations to a farmhand in '82. Ray sputtered, read to apoplectic. Lies, slander, but the damage bloomed, murmurs turning to outright scowls from his own camp. Even the preacher in the back averted his eyes, Bible suddenly heavy. Alex's turn came like a confessional, the witness box swallowing him whole. He stood tall, bruise long faded but spirit scarred fresh, voice clear as creek water. I love Carter. Always have. This farm isn't just land. It's where I learned to fight for what's right. Grandpa taught me that, in every unspoken glance, he met Ray's glare across the room. Uncle, you could have chosen grace. Instead, you chose fear. Tears glistened, but he didn't break, chin up, hand reaching back for mine across the aisle. The jury, a cross-section of dairy farmers, teachers, a tattooed vet with rainbow pins, leaned in, faces softening. Hargrove nodded imperceptibly. Even judges bend to heart. Recess dragged eternal. Us huddled in a fluorescent-lit hallway. Frank's arm around Alex's shoulders. First time I'd seen it without tension. Your grandpa'd be hollerin' from the rafters, he gruffed, voice thick. Elena joined, coffee in hand. Strong case. Ray's crumbling. His skeletons outweigh ours. But doubt gnawed. America's courts weren't always blind, especially in counties where traditional values meant code for exclusion. When we reconvened, Hargrove's gavel fell like fate. Petition denied. The will stands. And a word, counsel, she fixed Ray's lawyer with steel. Future filings of this nature may warrant sanctions for frivolous prejudice. The gallery erupted. Cheers from our sparse allies. Hisses from Ray's, but as we filed out, a cousin approached, hand extended. Sorry, Alex. Family's family. Fractures mending, slow as spring thaw. The drive home was jubilation laced with ache. Radio blasting Reba McEntire's Fancy. Windows cracked to winter's crisp bite. We did it, Alex hooped, pulling over at the overlook where Hudson met Hills, kissing me fierce across the console. You're stuck with me now, Ellis. Laughter bubbled, free and fizzy, but Ray's parting shot lingered. He'd slunk from court like a whipped dog, but eyes promising vendetta. He won't stop, I murmured later, tangled in sheets at the farmhouse, his body warm spoon against mine. Alex nuzzled my neck. Then we won't either. Weddings, adoptions, hell, a whole life. Spring unfurled gentle, snow yielding to green shoots, the farm awakening under our hands. Frank softened further, awkward overtures, like inviting my sister for Easter ham, or asking halting questions about that app life over beers. We planned the wedding's small backyard affair, under the oak that had weathered blasts and betrayals. Invites went out, even to Ray, no reply, but a truce in silence. One evening, as Alex and I rocked on the porch, fireflies winking like guests, Frank joined us, pipe glowing. "Wrote your grandpa in my head today," he said, staring at stars. "Told him you're making him proud." "Both of you." Alex's eyes misted. I squeezed his knee, ring-catching moonlight. But legacy's no straight path, twists come unbidden. Summer brought heat waves and harvest, but also a call from Elena. Ray, bitter and broken, had filed bankruptcy, farm equipment repossessed. Whisper said he'd confess to the preacher. Not just threats, but his own buried youth, a lover lost to shame. A week later, a knock at dawn. Ray on the stoop, hat in hand, face gaunt as a ghost. "Alex," he rasped, voice stripped bare. I was wrong. Saw myself in you, the hiding, the hate. Lost everything cause of it." Alex froze, then stepped forward, pulling him into a hug, fierce, forgiving. "Blood's blood, uncle. Come in." Reconciliation brewed slow, Ray helping with silos, Frank grunting approvals, stories shared over whiskey that tasted less bitter. At our wedding, July 4th, flags and fireworks. Ray stood witness, eyes wet as Alex vowed. "In all storms, you're my shelter." Rings exchanged, kisses sealed under the oak. Cheers rising with the national anthem twisting queer and proud. Frank's toast cracked us open. To love that endures, like this land, like us. Years folded after, farmstead thriving, adoption of twins from the city, their laughter echoing Grandpa's letters. Ray found peace in AA meetings, quiet beau in town. Alex and I, weathered but whole, rocked on that porch most nights, hands laced, watching sunsets bleed gold. The shock of that shotgun morning, it birthed us raw, real, unbreakable. In America's heart, where fields stretch forgiving and storms pass, love isn't the blast. It's the rebuild, brick by tender brick, proving we're all just farmers of the soul.